Grand Rising, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Back here on a Tuesday morning, a little later in the morning, to just discuss expanding consciousness. What does it mean? What are we talking about? And how can you expand consciousness and kind of like maybe the struggles that happen when you're expanding consciousness, because that just could be not so fun when you're growing, right? Everybody says it's the struggle's real, and the struggles are what help us to expand and grow. I always think of like the plant going through the concrete, kind of like breaking through and like trying to reach up to the sun or whatever it is. But expanding consciousness, like, and there's many things like you can read about, okay, well, how do we expand consciousness? And I think what often happens is people get very in their head and about it, and then they try to make it a logical thing as opposed to an experiential kind of wisdom embodiment of what it would be to expand consciousness rather than really kind of rationalizing the ideas behind expansion of consciousness. So, what does it mean to even embody, right, this expansion or to even experience an expansion of your worldview? Because I would say, I don't know, how do you feel about it? Like in terms of worldview, Pam, do you think consciousness like it's part of it, right? Like, consciousness is everything, but, like, thinking
Mm,
about expanding your worldview or expanding your way of perceiving the world or even
mm.
allowing new narratives to come into your mind about how the world works or operates, right? It's just like it's an interesting thing, and it's not easy for most people to, like, to open up, to allow
Right.
themselves to stretch, if you
Yeah. No, I agree. I think for me, the biggest thing that helped was when I started traveling. Because I mean, like I've said before, I had children really young.
Mhm.
And so, I was realistically 16 and 20 and married, at 21. So I was very much in New England, right? Confined to
Mhm.
this little corner of the United States, just, maybe traveling 4 hours from one state to another state for like the first 3 decades of my life, though. That was all I knew,
Mhm.
was a little bit of city life and then a little bit of country life. So once, the divorce happened and I was, independent to finally make choices and travel on my own, that helped me totally understand different cultural things, of different places, just ways of life, just having more empathy and compassion, realizing how blessed I am, even eating the food, which we've had conversations about plenty of times. When you feel how impacted your body is, you know what I mean? How
Mhm.
your whole body feels gross or disgusting or really healthy. So that expands your consciousness, at least in my perspective.
Yeah.
When you're talking about worldview, I guess that's what the
Uh-huh.
first thing I'm thinking about is all of my travel compared to
Mm.
like my grandmother who never even drove, who never really left the city unless she was riding shotgun with somebody else. But I don't know that she ever got on a plane and went anywhere. So to me, I feel like it's almost a comfort zone or a container where we kind of hold ourselves limited from expanding. Um,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I couldn't even imagine it. Hey, Chuck, how are you? I couldn't even imagine like not being able to or just being confined to one location your whole life, right?
yeah.
I think there's beauty in it too, because it's kind of like, well, you don't know anything beyond it, but then to go to other lands. And I think that's a lot of the narrative that happened even with, if you go back historically, right? They came and they're like,
Mhm.
what the hell are these people doing? Or and rather than like asking themselves like, oh, this is a whole worldview, how can I expand my own understanding of the world through their lens? They're like, they're wrong, they're beast or they're savage or whatever it is, right? And it's like they're not doing it right.
Mm.
But and then, oh, the foods, what is this? It's like But you're absolutely correct in, like, traveling does expand consciousness in a huge way because
Mm,
you start to see how other people live, and you may not like the way that they live, or it may be uncomfortable. Like, I'll tell you now, when I lived in India, totally different.
mm,
It's completely different from the United States.
yeah,
Everything is very, um, covert. It's all in your face. There's they're not hiding anything. They don't hide their trash. They don't hide,
yeah,
and you come here, it's over. Everything's hidden. Everything's like proper clean. Very different. And it was funny because even when I was there in India, when they were because I did it for school, right? And so this guy Jacob, his name was Jacob. He was so cute. He was kind of our guide, so he was kind of telling us like, here's how India works in comparison to like the United States, right? And it was totally yeah, it was funny because he was like, you guys line up properly. Here, lines are suggestions. And it's like, and it's true. It's like if you want to get food in India, you better put yourself and be assertive and get to the front of the line, or you're never going to eat, right?
yeah,
Traffic, right? Lines are
oh,
suggestions. So traffic, but it's like organized chaos there in the traffic,
yeah,
right? Just a totally different experience. And
mm,
it does expand your worldview because at first I was like, whoa, this is so different,
yeah,
right? It's like to even think that people, like, actually live that way 'cause you don't know unless you experience it yourself,
right,
and then finding the beauty in it, which is cool, and that's where the consciousness expands. Because if there's this block of, like, they're doing it wrong, right? Then it's like you're not trying to find the beauty in the experience that they have in life and the way
yeah,
that they're perceiving the world, right? It works for them.
right.
How the hell traffic works there is beyond me, but it works. I do not
Oh,
think I could drive out
I know,
there. I'm pretty sure
I know.
I would probably crash. There is no room to look at your phone when you're in traffic in India whatsoever.
Yeah,
You
same
don't
thing when
put your hat on What the what? Go ahead.
yeah. No, in Peru, it was the same thing. We talked about that. They have no right of way, and it's just all these, like, angry, aggressive men on their horns from sun up to sundown. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
And you have to use the horn right out there because it's like, "I'm coming, and you
Yeah.
better know that I'm coming and I'm not stopping." You can't put your arm out like the rickshaw. You couldn't
Mm.
put your arm out. Like, here in America, we're just putting our arm out the window to feel the wind. I mean, you do that, you won't have an arm in this, it's just drop right off. I mean, it's crazy how close they get, right? You could
Oh,
touch the other car or whatever, it's crazy.
yeah,
And they tell you, "Keep your arm in," "Keep your arms
wow.
and legs in." Um, but it expands your consciousness and even, like, the food too. I remember when I was leaving, people are like, "Do you even like Indian food? How are you gonna do with the food?" And I'm like, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, like the way that they eat, the culture, the way that they see life. Cool thing about them that I really loved is like, walking into temples, you have to take your shoes off and wash your feet.
Mm,
You cannot walk in a temple with your shoes on.
yeah,
It's disrespectful. They don't allow it, and so you're taking your shoes off and you're anointing your feet before you walk in. I mean, it's a pretty ritual, right? It's like,
yeah, it's
hey,
beautiful.
I'm walking in purified and cleansed before I come into this temple or whatever it is. So it does expand your consciousness in a way because you're starting to say, well, my worldview isn't the only worldview.
Right,
Our culture, our way of life is not the only way. There's many ways
right.
that we see societies kind of rising, and there's beauty, and then there's shadow in all of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, Even America, we have our shadow, and I think people be like, well, we're the best. Well, yeah, yes and no, and maybe for
Yeah.
some, but there's a lot of shadow here in America as well.
It's a
It's there.
delusional kind of pride to a certain extent, realistically.
It's
Like, you just look
delusional.
at all like you said, it's all this shiny, polished cleanness on the outside, meanwhile, everything's just swept under the rug or under the bed with
Yep.
a, like, a distraction show going on, so you're looking in the closet.
And then it's like rotting from the inside out in a way, you know what I mean? It's like this rotting from the inside out because it's like, well, let me pretend I'm pretty on the outside and on the inside I'm really like
Yeah.
hurting or whatever it is, right?
Mm.
Um, and you can see how the narratives play out in the individuals, right? The people and their way of viewing the world.
Yeah.
Which, I always say, I think that was a great way to start it with travel, because I
Yeah.
think I think people who, um, have not traveled outside, of their own home, it's really hard for them to, and it's like Plato's cave, right? I love to come
Yeah.
back to that narrative of
Yeah.
Plato's cave. You can't really know until you can watch all the YouTube, but until you're there and experience it yourself, it's a totally different, it's a game changer,
Right.
to experience, to be in it, um, to see it, to expand the consciousness of travel is a huge one. The food,
Yeah.
like you said, how people travel very differently. Like even in Venice, when I just went to Venice, you know, I knew Venice was like they had like boats, and I didn't realize that there were no cars at all and that it was a bunch of islands connect. I didn't know. I didn't do research. I was like, I just
Yeah.
went. I'm like, hey, I just want to ride a boat around Venice, and I was like, holy crap! Like that's all these people like. No, like sometimes I'm sure there's people who've never left,
Yeah.
and all they know is riding around. Like families have a boat for their car. Like that's how they get around because
Yeah.
you
That's
can't get
cool.
around. Yeah. So it's totally, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
you would love it there, the
Yeah.
water.
Well, it's like that at Machu Picchu too. There's no you
Uh-huh,
have to take the train, from Alite Tambo all the way
uh-huh,
up
uh-huh.
and, it was just the bus going from, like, the pickup spot at the bottom of the hill, all the way up the mountain to Machu Picchu. That's it. It's like 20-minute bus ride. So it was really cool to spend I stayed there way too long because there was like 5 days, and they're like, "Oh, most people do like 2, 3 tops." So I totally got that. But so for me, it was like, okay, well, I've seen everything. I've been here. Yeah, you can't walk. There's no driving. You're just walking, and it's really awesome. So then I just started walking in the jungle and just kind of took off and spent a whole day, exploring up in other villages, and it's cool because I remember walking by. Like the railroad tracks, and they were still digging it. The men were in the little like ditch gully digging it using like hand machine crank things, I don't know, to dig the ditch and to like put down tracks or make repairs.
Right.
And you don't see that in America at all. So even that, I just kind of stop. And for me, I'm such an observer where I
Yeah.
really will just be quiet and not talk, and I just observe and analyze. And it doesn't matter, if I'm at work or if I'm hanging out with friends, like I just naturally find myself going into this observer mode. And I think that and that's where I find like a lot of self-reflection, a lot of connecting or resonating, compassion, empathy, whatever. And I feel like that's where I grow too, um, and expand by just, I think instead of just walking through a scene, right? Instead of just walking through an environment, we really need to feel the environment. I think we really need to like understand, what the energy is that's maybe causing our mood, right? So it's easy to feel peace and joy when we're out in nature, but then in other places, it can be chaotic and overwhelming. So even just tapping into that, and I feel like travel, there's two ways to travel, right? You can have the resort and you can have the perfect vacation,
Uh-huh.
if that truly exists. But then there's other ways, right? There's
Sure.
doing some of the tourist stuff, and then there's
Mhm.
getting down to the nitty gritty and living like a local. And
Yep.
that's how I prefer. Like,
Yep.
I've never been to like a resort, on
Mhm.
any beach type stuff like that. Like, it's been definitely like, a little bit of tourist stuff, but then in the nitty gritty of it. And I think there's just so much growth when you allow yourself to be
Absolutely.
vulnerable there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all inclusives, and that's like a whole
Yeah.
thing in itself, but I always feel like it's very, that's such an American way to travel too, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, well, I feel like this is a microcosm of actually where I currently live in the United States, right? Where it's like
Mm.
when you get to the outskirts of how the locals live, totally different, experience, like you said. I think when I was in Thailand, right, that was like a huge, even in India, but when I went to Thailand, we it was funny because we saw there was a lot of tourism there, in Thailand, obviously, especially because we went to the island of Koh Samet, which they have like this chain of islands, Koh Samui, Koh Samet, all these different little islands. And we went where the locals actually go, the island where the locals go.
Mm.
And at the dock, right, where you're, like, getting onto the boats, they had these tours where they had a bunch of people together, who were American. They could have been also European because you have a lot of people that travel, Europeans travel quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had this, like, group of people, and they have their tour guide or whatever, and us, we were like, "Nah, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna, like, travel like the locals do." And we did, and we rode the boat, and they were trying to charge, I think, like $100 for ferry passage. We're like, nah, we're gonna ride the local way, which was like, I think, $1 or
Yeah.
something. Like, that is a totally different experience, right? But you're not getting all this like glitz and glamour and all that, taking you to the island where the locals are, and then, staying like the locals stay, maybe a
Mhm.
hostel, or,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, or even being invited into a home. Sometimes they'll do that. It's very different. The culture is very different out in Asia. Um, but doing that where, like, the locals, and then eating like the locals as well, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Where do the locals go? What are their favorite places? Or even being invited into someone's home, which is common out there. Like, we got invited, I think it wasn't in Thailand, but I think it was Nepal. I can't remember exactly where we were. A family was like, "Come home, my wife will make food for you," and we were kinda like, I don't, for us, it was kind of strange, right? Because, like,
Right.
Americans aren't walking around inviting random people into their homes to go
No.
eat food, right? And so we
No.
were kinda like, "Where are they what's gonna happen here?" We're like, "Okay," that you could tell that energetically they were really good people, and they did. They
Mhm.
made
Yeah.
food for us, they sat around, they wanted to know about us. It was like, "Oh, like, this is a whole different world." Like,
Right.
this is like, people that truly wanna they care about the connection to individual people. It's
Yeah.
really truly about cultivating connection and community, where they have more of a collective mind than an individual mind, right?
Mhm.
So they're raised very, like, sharing food and putting it in the middle of the table, and, like, everybody just kinda gets food together and they eat together, and, they still have a lot of that traditional stuff going on, but very, very different to travel, like you said, between the 2, and I've done other things, like Cancun. We stood at this resort. It wasn't an all-inclusive resort, it was more of a, um the hotel was like a resort, but it was so far away from the whole glitzy glamour resorts that we were had to bus into the places
Mm.
that were more glitz and glam, but we also did do this tourist stuff where we did, zip lining into, these under cave tunnels, right, where you zip line into the water, and then you can swim into the water where the bats are, and you had somebody guiding you and stuff like
Oh,
that.
wow.
Was more of a touristy thing for sure, but the cool thing about this one is that they took us into this underground cave where there was water. You would have loved it, right? Because I know you love
Yeah.
water and stuff, but it was like caves and water, and there was a shaman there. He was the shaman
Oh,
of the
wow.
jungle, and he was pegged the shaman of the jungle, and he did this ritual before, and he said, "I'm here to hold the space of this place," and he blessed us before we actually did this journey. So
That's
it was
awesome.
really so it was kind of like a both and, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where we
Mhm.
got both and stuff, but they wanted the tourists to honor the land too, and not just to,
Right.
like, and I love that because it was like, we're gonna embrace the culture, we're gonna embrace these tourists, these outsiders, but we're also
Yeah.
gonna let them know that we have this tradition, and these traditions are, really important to us, and that we care for the land or whatever it is. So it's really beautiful. So I think it was
Yeah.
like this both and too, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I experienced something like that with, the retreat, I guess. The first because I went, obviously, to South America for the ayahuasca,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
retreat, and did other things. But yeah, same thing. It was really beautiful, clearing and healing, and they had us do, like, community service. I'm not a dog person. I've always been just a cat, right? I love
Uh-huh.
cats. But they took us to like a dog, an animal shelter for dogs,
Mhm.
because there's just so many. I mean, dogs were loose and wild and just everywhere. And I remember really that kind of again hitting my consciousness. Like wow, there were more loose wild dogs than some people in some villages, and they had their own like little species depending, you know, their own breeds or whatever, depending on villages. So you could tell which ones were like leading the packs. I don't know, but people would like hit them because they would just be in the road. And so horrible,
Oh, wow.
horrible, like heartbreaking stories. And so going and doing volunteer work and taking care of, you know, dogs, that brought a connection, you know, in a soft spot. I almost wanted to like adopt and be like, can I bring a
Uh-huh.
dog home on the
Uh-huh.
plane? But
Yep.
but then it really made me think about like how we are here, you know, and how we really treat animals and our pets. And so, you know, it made me thinking even about like laws. And but then it comes back to that, well, I'm one person and what can I do to make a difference? But I just really remember really being impacted by that, and having like a new soft spot for dogs.
Yeah, and that's part of the expanding consciousness, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like you never
exactly.
thought you would be a dog person, and then all of a sudden you have this newfound, profound connection to this animal or creature that you never had before. And then
Yeah.
it expands, your worldview or
Hmm.
how you experience it. And you're like, wow, now I feel this deep connect. And I was opposite. I think I never really liked cats. And then all of a sudden, there was this expand no, seriously, those like
No, it
cats and
doesn't
stuff.
surprise me. That's why I'm
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I'm serious. This is the truth. And then, I think in other cultures too, of like really looking at real world problems that are happening beyond our own kind of
Mm,
neighborhood. Since we're talking about travel, like I did some volunteer work at it was called Snehadan, which was a they had children who had HIV AIDS, and so it was running rapid in India that these
mm,
people who had it on the streets were spreading it and all that. So the parents would die. These kids would grow up with it, not knowing, and then when they would become adults or whatever, they would then spread it, right? Because they didn't know, right? So
yeah.
so basically they took these kids whose parents were dying and they were teaching them about what it was and stuff. And so we went to their little camp and all that and helped the children, played with
Mm,
them, read to them, all that kind of stuff. Which was such a beautiful thing.
yeah.
But to even see that, there's these issues that are happening, beyond our own microcosm sufferings that we have within our own family unit or whatever, that there's this bigger thing that's going on that we don't even realize, right? Or or
Right.
or, or notice, kind of these hidden things. And so I mean there's like these world things that help us to expand the way that we see the world as well. You know what I mean? And reconnecting with, nature as well. Like we did, you're talking about refuge. We went to an elephant refuge.
Mm.
And I was able it was so cute. I was, like, washing this baby elephant, and it
Aw.
was just playing with us. I know it was cute.
I
I
love
had a picture,
elephants.
like, touching it. Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
cute. They were so, such beautiful creatures because nature can teach us, traveling can teach us,
Mm.
connecting with animals can expand. I
Yeah.
think about kung fu, and I think about what the monks were trying to do with kung fu in terms of really looking at how to become or be the lion, how to be they were really trying to embody the essence
Mhm.
of the animals or of the elements, or which helps us to expand our consciousness as well, because that becomes more of like as above so below, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to embody these elements, right? And so there are so many different aspects and ways to expand consciousness. Dreams, last night I had a dream. It's funny. Last night
Oh,
I had a
yeah.
dream about snakes,
Oh,
and
there you go.
there was 3 snakes, 3, all different breeds. It wasn't the same. One was like this orange, yellow one. None of them were venomous and none of them were they were all just there. One was black, And I can't remember the color of the other one, but there was 3 of them
Hmm.
all together. And, the black one was shorter. The one that was like, orange, white, cream color was longer, bigger, had like kinda like that diamond head.
Huh.
The other one was
Yeah.
more like the black viper, the mamba, the black mamba head, where it's
Yep.
just kind of rounded. And I can't remember what the other one was. I'm sure it'll come to me eventually, but they were all there, and I was this morning thinking like, why snakes? Why did they show up in my dream? I know I was looking at like reptiles yesterday too, like lizards. So it's probably part of it, right? Is like the imagery or whatever, but these 3 snakes kinda showed up and not violent, they were just there, like, on my lap, just
Yeah.
with me, which was pretty cool. But to understand how that dream can expand consciousness or live within my own, like, subconscious mind is telling me something or leading me to look at something else, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that is another way that our consciousness can expand. It's really looking at our dreams and
Absolutely.
interpreting and understanding what that might mean for us, subconsciously and consciously, and then how to grow from that.
Mhm. No, I
Hello,
agree
spiritual
completely.
doctor. Go ahead. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Spiritual doctor. I was just saying hi.
No, that's a cool name. No, I agree. I feel like dreams are super important to me. I've had so many beautiful, they're just the ones that you can't shake, right? Like you can still years later remember details or emotions or feelings. That's why I created my workshop, the dream interpretation and creative expression. Um, and I went after like our dream specialization
Uh-huh.
with our master's degree.
Right.
um I'm just so drawn and passionate in exploring that. So as you're talking and saying stuff, definitely there's like archetypal symbolism that appears from there that like, right, if you chose to work with it and explore it, I'm sure it
Mhm.
would give you, the understanding of the transformation, that you're kind of going through. But
Mhm.
absolutely, dreams are so powerful. And I think the biggest thing with that too is people don't recognize that like our food, our diet, like the things that we consume can make it so that we wake up and we're like, I don't have dreams. I don't recall them. A lot of people that I've known personally or that have always been like, I don't dream. And that's not true. I think just sometimes because of all the substances, it impacts our body. So that maybe we wake up and we can't reconnect, but there's definitely ways to work with that.
Mhm.
Because I think it's an important picture in the wholeness of our psyche.
Mhm.
um so you can look at ego and you can look at soul, but I think to ignore the dream realm is to kind of ignore those aspects of yourself as well. Because even though they're crazy and they're weird and they don't make sense sometimes,
Mhm.
they are a very important aspect of our consciousness that is like a puzzle. So if we can figure out how to build a relationship to decipher it, I think that's really, really important to grow and evolve.
Yeah, it's the imagery that's closest to our soul,
Yeah.
really. I know that's what Jung thought too,
Mm.
in his work and stuff. And I agree. And even ancient native traditions, right, where he got his work, is
Yeah.
like they too were thinking of, remembering needs to be lots of effort, practice and practice. Yeah. It's funny because, with the dream realm, I'm opposite of that. And Pam knows this. I have since I was a kid remember my dreams every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't remember my dreams.
Mm.
Now all of it, not all of it, because I think there are pieces that obviously go away, but I always remember dreams every single morning. The feeling, and I don't know if it's the food or whatever, because I can't say I've had the best thing. But if you're interested, like for those people who are interested in like recalling dreams, some of
Mm.
the practices to help you expand, because it helps expand consciousness. It helps you understand your internal realm,
Yeah.
and what it might mean in the external. is to do in the morning. A good practice for people is to keep their eyes closed and not just jump up out of bed, because then your brain automatically will transition into another part. It's like the states, right? The alpha, the
Yes.
theta. I don't know all of them for sure, but I just know that your brain goes out of the state where your dream realm comes from. So keeping your eyes closed and allowing that imagery to naturally occur is a way to do it. And then a dream journal is a good one to help you start to get those dreams back. So some people, everybody does dream, and that's something that I learned in our dream class that I wasn't aware of, because I'm like, why do I remember my dreams every day and nobody else does, like, or not a lot of people. And I thought that I was the only one who was dreaming, and the reality is we all dream. It's just that some people don't have dream recall. And
Hmm.
so I have a high dream recall where others don't. That doesn't mean you're not dreaming. It
Right.
just means that, yeah, so I think if you're forgetting or you haven't remembered your dreams in a long time, there are ways to actually support yourself through that. Um and a lot of it is just because I think it's a lot of the hustle bustle. I don't know where the listeners are from. I don't know if you guys are in the US or not. Um, but if you are, a lot of the US is just like get up and get after it. So like we just
Yeah.
like set alarms and we just jump up, and so there's not that time to reflect and remember.
Right.
Um and so yeah, experienced the faith transformation through dream. Couldn't believe at first. Yeah. And you will through your dreams. Dreams
Hmm.
are so powerful because
Yep.
honestly, it's your soul talking to you. Is what it ends up being, right? It's like your
Right.
soul's talking to you. Yeah. And so in that, when your soul's talking to you, it's trying to get you to see something. I used to have a reoccurring dream, right? Where I didn't graduate high school, and I'd wake up and I'd be like, wait, did I graduate? And a lot of it had to do with the fact that I know I wanted to go back and get my undergraduate degree, and I had it at the time. And so it just keep reoccurring, and once I graduated with my undergrad degree, all those dreams stopped.
Huh.
But it was just a calling, right? It was like this thing, it
Yeah.
was like education, it was like, "You've gotta get your degree for whatever reason," and it was gonna fester in my subconscious mind until I did it, right? It's just gonna be like,
Right.
"Nope, you're this." Um, or a common dream for people, that I didn't realize either is, like, the bathroom dream.
Oh, yeah.
Like, having, like, gross bathroom, like, I have a phobia of gross bathrooms to begin with, like, I just can't. It took me forever to, like, use a restroom in a public place, and yeah. So, anyway, since I was a little girl, and so, I was like, "Dun, dun, dun, that's scary." Um, no porta potties for me ever. I think maybe once in my life I did a porta potty, but I almost nearly puked and died in there. It was gross. Um, but I know. But in your dream, and I didn't realize this, a lot of people have that where they'll dream like this disgusting bathroom, and it helps to like wake you up so you can go to the restroom.
Ah,
So your subconscious mind is kind of operating at that level, right? And
yeah.
so there's stuff that needs to be drawn out. But it is the closest thing. It's the imagery of your soul, right?
Mm,
It's like this this realm that is like no one can get into. It's your own
yeah.
personal, like, realm, really, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
You
cool.
cre Yeah. It's like, I don't know, like, no one can see your dreams. I mean, maybe one day they'll create some AI thing that I'm like, "D please don't look at my dreams. I don't want you to see what I'm dreaming,"
Right?
but
Oh,
because that
goodness.
just seems invasive, right? Don't you
Yeah.
think? Like, if somebody
Oh,
could see your dreams,
absolutely. That would be
it's
really
like
weird. I
uh-huh.
like to share them and talk about them with people, but yeah, I know what you mean, like, the whole concept of, like, I don't know if it's like a microchip or something, but, like, yeah, being able to, like, download it and then watch it, like, that's really weird. That's totally not like,
It
I don't
feels invasive because it's your world. It's almost
Yeah,
weird. It's like dreams become your own personal realm,
yeah.
and it feels like it'd be invasive to, like, just come and, like, "Yeah, no, this is my personal, like, subconscious mind, leave it alone," right?
Right.
Um,
Especially when you set
but
intentions for, like, to have certain dreams. At least I know I have, when you lay
mhm.
at in bed at night as you're kinda hitting that hypnagogia state. It's like, okay, if I could just fall asleep dreaming about this, that would be wonderful.
I know. The flying dreams. Oh, I love it. It's been a
Oh yeah,
while.
those
But
are
it's
awesome.
weird because it's like levitation and it's like in the real world. I'm like, did this really happen? Um, Turning into a believer through dreams. Yeah. Thanks for the Thanks for my friend and well wishes for that. Michelle, what's her name? She used to regularly visit in my dreams. Ah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool too because we can meet the people we love in our dreams, which is pretty
Yeah.
powerful as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then who knows, maybe get some resolve and all the things that might happen within the dream world. I
Mm.
think I've had some resolve
Yep.
like, I could tell you facing my biggest fear, which is, talking about expanding consciousness was, because I dream every night and remember or because I recall my dreams every night. Freddy Krueger was like, you can
Oh,
imagine that was like the worst thing for me to watch. And for whatever reason I was watching, why I was watching it, I don't know. And I had nightmares because of course that's what crept up and I was so afraid to go to sleep. I was like the people in the movie literally trying
yeah.
to stay awake because I was so afraid that I was gonna have a nightmare, and I did, and I did, and I did, and I did.
Oh, wow.
But the resolve that happened, which is pretty cool, it literally wasn't until I was freaking, um, 18 that I would sleep with the light on. I mean, I was afraid to even take a shower. I mean, it was just like it was, like, awful. Like, it really haunted me really badly, like, the
Mm.
fear of this character. I won't even watch it to this day because 'cause I'm like, "You know what? I've dealt with it. I'm over it."
Yeah.
Even the sound, the song, all that stuff.
See,
Um
that's as far as I ever got. I think I was like 4 or 5. So if I heard I remember the babysitter or something at one point being at her house and hearing it and just being too afraid. And yeah, too sensitive. Like still don't like horror movies or anything like that. So I
Yeah,
think it's
and
definitely
to
an empath
resolve
thing for
it
sure.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
But to resolve it, I had to, like, honestly, when I was about 18 years old, I literally just was like, "Alright, I'll just be your girlfriend." Like, I didn't know what else to do. I was tired of trying to run and tired of having nightmares.
Mm,
But it's almost like me embracing the darkness or whatever whatever it was.
yeah.
And I was like, "Let's just kiss," which is kinda gross, right? But whatever, it is what it is. That's how I got over it, but there was this acceptance of the shadow side, right? And
Yeah.
being like, it deserves love too. So there was an expansion, in consciousness around that dark force or that energy of the predator. Not that I would go out and just be like, yes, I am okay with this, but I had to embrace that side of it, or I would have always and forever had nightmares, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, around this. And what an awful, an awful character for a child who's a dreamer, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was the
Oh
worst. It was
yeah.
like, yeah. Let's see, also reality, so dreams and a reality unfaded 100% pure consciousness, maybe. Thanks, ladies, for a wonderful show. Um, yeah, also in reality, yeah. So
Yeah.
dreams and reality unfaded, yeah.
I definitely have had
Oh,
a few, sitting in my car moments at a red light and getting a flashback and trying to discover, okay, did that happen in reality or was that in a dream? Because I really don't know right now. And it was happening more and more often that I remember at one point it became unsettling. Um,
mm,
it was just consciousness, right? It was expanding in all realms that it was blurring lines and I couldn't distinguish like if it actually happened in a dream or if it happened in my real like physical life, within a day or two or something. So I think for sure the more work you do with the dreams, the lines can become blurred,
oh, for
because you're
sure.
opening up the channel, right? You're
Yeah.
saying like, I want this connection, I want this relationship. I'm putting in the effort, just like you would in any other type of communicative relationship. So the soul's gonna be like, okay, let's start in with those images and see what you can handle or take from it. I always feel very blessed because I never really suffered from nightmares. I think I've had maybe just a
Mm,
couple as an adult.
yes.
And I've
Yes.
never had recurring dreams. Like I've never had anything play over and over. So I
Mhm.
always find it fascinating when people talk to me about that. This is the recurring scene, and it's like, okay, well, clearly, right, it's some loop, it's some situation you're stuck in. Like, let's explore it.
Mhm.
But I love animals. Like, I'll definitely go do like the whole Google search. Boom, boom. What is this message? What is this animal? Because like you're talking about earlier, it's embodying those traits, right? Embodying those characteristics. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's not even about relating to the animal, but becoming the animal.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's just so that's where I get all excited and I'm like, ooh, passionate. The conversation can go on and on. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really awesome to work with dreams, I think.
Yeah, and I do have reoccurring dreams. So what the I think I told you about the reoccurring dream is like being in this maze.
Yes.
I don't think that one's gonna stop because I think it's the maze of the world.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've talked about that. Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna stop because this world is a big maze to me, right? It's like this big freaking
Right,
conundrum. I'm just like, "Ah, I'll never figure it out. We're not supposed to, I guess."
right.
But it's that reoccurring dream of like, each door has a different opportunity or it's a different scenario. Every time I open it, I don't know what I'm going to get.
Mm,
Sometimes I'm hiding from things, sometimes I'm running, sometimes I'm not. And then
yeah.
it's funny, it's like I get outside of the maze or whatever. I find the back door if it's in a building. I mean, it's a mall sometimes. I mean, it's just like these different, sometimes it's a house, it's all these different scenes, but it's the same thing. It's a maze that I'm in and stuck in. Then I get outside the door, but then I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go back in. You know what I mean? It's like I don't go beyond the maze, maybe that's it. I just don't know what's beyond the realm of this
Yeah.
world, right? It's like I have ideas of what's beyond. I believe in the beyond, and all that stuff, but it's like, do we really know the beyond? We won't really know until we pass beyond, right? Until
Right.
we're
We're
like
back in
really
it.
outside, until it's our time to go and we're beyond the veil of whatever this is. But I think with those reoccurring dreams, right? And it's like, the expansion of it too. It's like, well, what does it mean? I know recently I've been in like amusement parks for some reason. Um, which is interesting, and water, again, keeps
Yeah.
showing up, water, water, water. I keep ending up at water completely at water, water, water. So what is it telling me in terms of my personal life and what I need to do? I know I have a lot of transition going on, so my snakes probably showed up too.
Yeah.
Transformation, you know what I mean? There was
Yeah.
3, all
Yeah.
different. I was like, I'm transitioning all parts of my life. It's like this snake, none of the snakes looked alike, but there was 3 and they were there and they all looked different. They all had a different, I'm sure, meaning, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
None of them aggressive, but there to remind me of like, yeah, you are transitioning. You are in this new phase of life or whatever it is. But dreams can be such a powerful tool for expanding consciousness. But also I think, like you said, the blurred lines, you got to be careful because sometimes we can move into psychosis with some of this stuff,
Right.
and definitely don't want to do that, right? We don't want people out there like dropping into psychosis and not kind of understanding what is real, what's not real.
Right.
I would say this too, because I think part of expanding consciousness is realizing how to bridge the gap between two, which what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
is we are in this sort of three-dimensional time frame where we are playing out this narrative in this body, in this lifetime, on this earth, on this planet. But also, we have this ability to tap into these higher truths, spiritual truths. And sometimes people want to stay up there with these spiritual truths and not remember that they're embodied here right now.
Mhm.
And that bridging that gap between the two is like so critical because we're expanding consciousness is like can take you to all these other dimensions and time, places, and all that. But we have to anchor it in back into the 3D so that we can do the work. Like, what is that energy drawing us into?
Mm.
And what is it asking us to do in this lifetime, on this world, on this plane, I do believe that individuals will transcend this time and space into, who knows, and maybe another body, another in a different realm or a different, who knows, right? Like there's so many infinite possibilities about what happens. But we're being called here And part of that narrative is really, and I know as time comes, we should kind of talk about this, really anchoring into your stellar body
Mm-hmm.
and being able to bridge the gap between the macrocosm and the microcosm, which has
Yep.
been really kind of taken from us. They've sort of severed that, or tried to. It's always going to be there, obviously, but it's just being able to understand our own narrative,
Right.
our own origin story, our own stellar body and its evolution and where it's at and what it's trying to teach us about this particular three-dimensional time space. What is it asking us to do here now? And that keeps us anchored so that we're
Right.
not just kind of floating, because we can either be like floating in the cosmos or we can be so grounded that are not connected. And
Right.
it's like, where's the harmony that synergizes both, right? This big stellar connection to the macro, but also then narrowing it into the micro, which is like this point in time that we're embodying, this
Mm-hmm.
particular point in time that we're embodying, right? We're coming to this point, and it's how do we utilize all of that beauty that's coming from the macrocosm into the micro?
Mm-hmm.
How do we tap into that, right, to expand our consciousness, right? And sometimes it can be too much. Like I'll tell you, like I've told Pam, and even she knows, like sometimes it just comes flooding in, and it's almost like, whoa, like this tiny body here on this planet cannot handle all of that energy that's being circulated right now.
Right. Because if you don't have the right support system,
Mhm.
or outlet, right, to integrate and to analyze, yeah, it is a lot. Because I feel crazy just telling it to you, and I know you totally understand. But it sounds like I'm on a plant medicine journey, realistically, right? Like I'm on a shroom or an ayahuasca journey, and I'm getting all of this ancient remembering because that's truly what
Uh-huh.
it is.
Mhm.
Um, and can call it downloads or whatnot, but it's all that ancient remembering, that consciousness is like, like, oh, here, you can remember this now.
Mhm.
But yeah, it can be. And I'm grateful because for me, like I have had to learn, how to be connected. And this is like what we've talked about with birth charts and looking at the elemental placement in your birth chart. I'm a Pisces sun, so I always related to just the Pisces sun, right? Because in our culture, that's in the horoscope page for entertainment, and that's as far
Mhm.
as it goes. But really diving deeper into astrology and seeing my other placements and recognizing other things, I'm dominated by fire and I have no earth. So part of my huge life lesson was to learn how to be grounded, to learn how to use the element of earth, as a healing, embodying, whatever vessel that it's been for me. Um, so that massively impacted my consciousness of my whole human journey, because like we were talking about that dreamer, right? Like as a Pisces, you're automatically like wired to be creative in your mind and to want to
Yeah.
escape, right? Harsh
Mhm.
dark energies come around and we just want to escape, into our fantasy land. So to anchor and to realize what was illusion or self-made delusion, those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
all things that I had to be really truly honest with myself about, while
Mhm.
understanding, okay, this is what the element of fire and water really looks like, and now I have to embrace like this lack of air and this lack of earth.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm,
that makes a huge profound, I think, impact on that human aspect, because then I'm getting this ancient remembering, like you said, like I want to stay there. It kind of just feels so good that it's hard to anchor back into the earth, especially when being a human can be so painful. Um, so it's like you're looking for that escapism into the spiritual. So
mhm.
finding that balance and finding like, okay, I have to be human, but I can be spiritual, has been a profound part of my journey.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that you you help me find more puzzle pieces realistically.
Mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm,
And
mhm,
I'd like to think like I kind of did that for you because you
mhm,
were seeing things in fresh eyes based on
mhm,
just, since our twin flame kind of connection and what's
mhm.
come from that. Yeah, so it's beautiful, like, to see how much you can evolve just with another person being, like,
Mm.
your puzzle piece.
Yeah, and accepting that, right? And
Yeah.
letting that come in too, because I think what happens often with individuals, and I always tell this to my listeners, like, you got to be very careful about who you follow because this work ego can get in the way very quickly for individuals, right? Even the spiritual ones, even the ones who are the most spiritual and all this stuff, right? Is that ego is such a huge thing. And sometimes when you see someone kind of sitting on their ivory tower saying, I have the only truth,
Yeah.
I run
Mhm.
completely the opposite direction. For me, spiritual evolution is a consistent thing in this particular dimension. Nobody's going to hold the ultimate truth because we're too tiny. There are some ultimate truths, I will say that radiate throughout this, like, harmony and love and the balance of dualities and stuff like that. So there are some universal laws I think that play out here
Right.
in truth, but to be the holder of truth in perception is not necessarily true because we all see it differently.
Of course.
We all have this unique blueprint. And I say that if a spiritual guidance or an advisor is telling you how they see it and that's your truth, run the other direction. Really, what they should be doing is guiding you to your internal truth and how that's going to play out to serve humanity, how you're
Mhm.
going to use your gifts to evolve humanity, how you'll use your gifts to support and help, and not from a I have it all, but from a learning, like a co-learning together. And I
Yeah.
think that's the power of what we have, right? It's like it is that we're constantly evolving together, like getting around people who help you evolve and together, and they're not just saying, oh no, I didn't evolve because of you. It's because it's like, no, like we're doing it together. I have some profound insights to parts of me that were untapped because of Pam, right? And Pam has the same thing going on with her. And we're just like, whoa. And it's just like this constant evolution and expansion. And that's how your spiritual advisors and people should be around. It should be this constant
Mhm.
evolution and expansion, not a I'm above you or this or that, or if you do, and that's fine. I'm not saying that people can't do that, obviously it's their life, but I would say I run the opposite direction when people are like, and I'm like, no, you know there is not a hierarchical thing here.
Mhm.
It's a constant expansion and growth potential. When you put it into the hierarchical kind of being, you're kind of recreating a three-dimensional time space for yourself, and that becomes time loops. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. We do need structure, right? But what does the structure look like that's conducive to all spiritual beings that are trying to evolve? And
Mhm.
and then a hierarchy is not necessarily, that's not going to be conducive to consciousness expansion. It's going to
Right.
put you in a box, or it's going to hinder your progression to evolve. So I think with yeah, with you, like you're saying that there was puzzle pieces, but you have puzzle pieces that are going to help me grow. And
Right.
that's the same for anybody, like in my space at this point. I'm like, how do we evolve together? That
Right.
there's not this struggle of like who's got it right, who's got it right. Well, we all have our own unique way. Even with you, like a spiritual doctor, you have your own unique way, your own unique fingerprint, and ways that you're working with your spiritual expansion of consciousness. And that's the same for all the listeners, right, that get on here. It's we all have
Mhm.
this ability to expand, and we all are not seeing it in different ways. It's too vast. There's too much in our imaginal world, in the archetypal, in the dream, in the down to like the earth consciousness, down to the planetary consciousness, to the micro, macro. All of that is way too much for one individual to say, like, I have all the truth. Like,
Yeah.
okay, no. There's just absolutely no way that's possible, right? It's like I like it. It's like you get I can't remember the parable, but I think it's a Buddhism parable, if I'm correct, where they have these monks who are blindfolded and they're touching a part of the elephant and they're
Oh, yep.
saying like yeah, where it's
Yeah.
like I absolutely like they're describing what they're feeling and they think they hold the ultimate truth, but each one is touching a different part of the elephant. And so there's no way like that they have the whole picture. They just have what's in front of them.
Yeah.
So they kind of would need each other to work to kind of understand the full picture. And they may not be able to understand the full picture, but they can get close to a picture that makes sense to move forward, to expand, to co-create, right? So that and that's what we do. We all have our own unique spiritual gifts. And that should be honored, I think, within each individual. I think sometimes um gurus or whatever it's like oh, it's all about their spiritual gifts and what they can bring. But really, I think if it's a true spiritual guide, they're gonna help you find your own spiritual gifts. We all have them.
Mhm.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
We just some of us are just a little bit more maybe the waters are a little bit more murky than others and they can't see the clear waters of their true spiritual essence.
Mm.
And so they need to kind of clean out that stuff so that they can see clearly what they're here to do, what their spiritual gifts are. And that's really what a spirit guide should be doing for people. But and then I know I just kind of went off, but that's because, that's the same thing. It's like you're absolutely correct. And like there was a lot of things that we worked through, even individually, like me being resistant to stuff like, hey, let me figure it out. But also then let me hear what you have to say. Let me at least open my heart to hear what it is you're seeing that might resonate with me, right?
Mm.
Um, because we still have those blocks. Like I still have them too, right? Like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is like way too much for me at this point. Let me figure out what I know for myself. And then figuring out the pieces and going, okay, I'm ready to receive the information. Like maybe I'm not even ready at this point to receive the information, right? And then when I am, and then I start to see it and say, okay, now I'm ready to kind of open up to see this new part of myself that I couldn't. And then how does it connect into these pieces of myself, like anchoring back into love, as a way of motivation or receiving healthy masculine energy into my life, into my heart, you know, um, not closing off to that, and being able to see that or realizing that, I came in with this ancient knowing and remembrance because I took on an entire intelligence, right? Like a planet intelligence or whatever it is, that
Mhm.
lives inside of me. Like those things are like, whoa, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? That's a narrative that resonates with me. But not getting into the psychosis of it too. So there's
Right.
that both and, right? Where you expand consciousness, but don't drop into psychosis as well. Remember, you're
Right.
here in a three-dimensional time space. What does that mean for me? And it would sound psychotic to some people
Yeah.
that my planet was destroyed, that I embodied maybe all of that planet's intelligence. That makes sense. I come here, and I'm trying to support individuals to recognize the intelligence of this planet and to nurture that and love it and
Yeah.
remember it. You know, so that narrative makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Whether it's true, like I was telling Lala, I was like, I really like how you said that. Whether it's true or not, that it's helping, but not being so caught up in that narrative as well. It's just how can I help humanity today? That narrative helps me. It
Yeah.
does. Just thinking about if I'm able to record song in such beautiful voices. What do you mean record a song? Tell me what you mean by that. I'm not yeah, if you just tell me what you mean by that. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but
Yeah, must have been something you said that definitely resonated, so
yeah, I mean, if you have something that you're wanting to do, we always accept gifts, right? If spiritual, loving, loving gifts from individuals. I don't know what you mean by song, but if you want to send us a song, you can definitely inbox us right on our. We're first of all we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and then you can also reach out to us by email. And we have all that. So at Women of Consciousness, if you look us up, go like us on Instagram, on Facebook as well. And then if you want to send something to us on an inbox, you can do that. Or if you want to send it through email, Women of Consciousness at gmail.com. So you're more than welcome to do that as well. Um, but yeah, I think, and thank you for sticking around, spiritual doctor. I think working together is the biggest thing for Pam and I, is really co-creating, co-collaborating, you know, recognizing the beauty in all the spiritual communities, all the people who are doing the work, really truly doing the work, right? It's about us just honoring that in each other.
Yeah.
I think the ego gets that competition thing going, and that's so ego, right? It's just
Yeah.
ego is just tricky. It's a tricky one. And it
Yeah.
creeps up when we don't least expect it. We're just like, damn, that was totally all ego. I gotta
Right.
revamp this or whatever. Um, but I'm truly calling forth. I think that's what Pam and I are truly calling forth, these individuals who are working to heal their trauma and suffering, and really step in as spiritual guides, to help raise expand consciousness, raise consciousness, so that we can start to co-collaborate together and learn to communicate as,
Mhm.
um, servants of this stewards of the planet. You know what I mean? It's just, I just don't understand how we're not there, but it's okay.
Yeah. Does seem to
You
be
know,
taking quite a while to get there.
well, yeah. So I was like, oh, humans, how do we get to
Yeah.
this point over and over? It's just a lot. It's a lot for some people, I guess. You know what I mean? That heavy, dense energy just takes over them, and apparently the psyche of that human mind is just sometimes really the battle's hard for people to fight or to move through.
Yeah.
Um, but there are people doing the work, and just want to honor those who are really committed to doing the work,
Mhm.
um, doing the best that they can. Hopefully, we gave you some tools, on this. We talked about travel, we talked about dreams, and how that can support us. We talked about the following people, or how working with individuals helps us expand consciousness. I mean, there's so many ways.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, with that. So, but it's coming up an hour, so we better get going. So much more we can discuss on this particular topic, but
Mm.
follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Also, go to our website, womenofconsciousness.com. We do provide services as well. We are, currently working on, Pam does some, I do as well, but we're doing, some Oracle tarot readings as well. If you are interested in any of that, go to our website. You can book an appointment, with Pam. Um, and then, also we do coaching and all that kind of stuff. So you can set up a discovery call if you want to. We do a discovery call really to make sure it's a right fit for both before we just like, hey, we, want to make sure that the individual's ready, prepared, and willing to move through the process. And then also, for the podcast as well. You don't have to donate, but we do have an option to donate. And part of that is just so that we can start to build community. We're really looking to build community, for individuals. And you kind of can go on the website, see what that's about. So there's that option as well. But just stay in contact. We're always giving out, tons of free information and all that kind of stuff as well. At the end is we really want to support individuals to move forward. With that, do you have anything else to add?
No, I would say I think like a lot of expanding consciousness really can a good starting point too is like healing. Just looking at, things that trigger you in your day-to-day life, rather than reacting or lashing out, you know what I mean? Sitting in stillness and really thinking through or feeling through the thoughts and the feelings and reflecting on them, because we, like you said earlier, we go the minute the alarm goes off. We have to like hit the floor running, and we tend to do that with our communication and our relationships. So rather than working through maybe a wave of energy that may be unpleasant, we act out and we lash out at people. And I think maybe if we just sat with that and looked at ourselves and really looked at our healing, that's a good way to start expanding your consciousness. And like you said, the people that are really doing the work, we've been lucky enough to align with them professionally or personally. And that's just where I am choosing to shift my focus so that I can continue to align with that energy, so that we can do the work and help others. Yes, absolutely. So I pray and I hope for people out there to just, work through their triggers without hurting others, and, to find healing, because at the end of the day, only we can heal ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
All right. Well, you guys have a fantastic day. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yes.
And thank you, Spiritual Doctor, for being for the show and engaging. That's always important. We have people engage. Um, have a great day. We love you, and we will be on here next Tuesday. Talk
Yep.
to you soon. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.